Yeah.
So, can you please give me a little brief or something like, can you explain how this responsive design thing works? Like, I'm a little
Yeah,
bit
yeah,
confused between
yeah,
this
yeah. I'll
breakpoint.
I'll share my screen. I'll
Yeah,
share my
yeah,
screen.
sure, sure.
Can you enable screen sharing, please? It's sets disabled.
Let me. Where
Okay,
is
did
it?
you take a look at
Wait a
the
minute.
Figma channel's video on constraints?
Yeah. Hey, let me. How should I need to make a host, right?
Uh,
Yeah,
yeah, I
okay.
think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay,
No,
now I
you
can share
can.
my
Yeah,
screen.
can. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, can you let me know if you can see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is like the project I'm working on right now.
Mm-hmm.
Let me make a new page. So that we'll work in a new page. So did you see the constraint settings yet on
Yeah.
Figma's channel?
I have also, already watched it, but I'm just little bit confused about this, like breakpoint thing. Um,
Mhm. Yeah, okay. So so you already know how the constraints work,
yeah,
like top,
yeah, I
bottom, left,
know
right,
top,
scale,
bottom,
and
left,
everything.
right. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so you just wanted to know how to set up the responsive
Yeah,
thing.
responsive for which is what is the breakpoints of this? Like for I have already not designed it, and I've already done this website and mobile site design. So what is the what is the in between design? Like one in between
Yeah,
breakpoints. I'm just like
yeah,
little
yeah,
bit
yeah, yeah,
confused.
yeah. I understand your question. So, just one question. The mobile and PC design that you did, is it on a grid system currently? Is it like on an eight pixel
Yeah,
grid?
great. Excellent, great.
8 pixel grid, yeah. Okay,
Yeah, kind of.
okay. So if you are on an 8 pixel grid, that's already good. There's a design system. I'll send you a link. It has the perfect breakpoints already set up for an 8 pixel grid, and it's
Mm-hmm.
perfectly laid out. So if you watch that video or like see that link, you'll have
Mm-hmm.
a very good built up tutorial on how to set up responsive design. But if you want to do it manually, that's fine as well, which I've done here. So manually gives you a little bit more control of where you want to set up your elements, especially if you have a lot of dynamic elements
Mm-hmm.
across the screen. So, for example, let me just duplicate it. So if you see here, I have some dynamic elements in the mobile version. So there's one main card, as you can
Mm-hmm.
see here,
Yeah.
and the other card is hidden behind the first one, and it's set up like if you scroll through towards the right, this card then becomes the active one, and this card goes to the left.
Yeah.
So if you want to have something like this, then you need to set up the grid manually. So what you do is when you set up all of the constraints,
Mm-hmm.
let me just copy this over here.
Okay.
Um, yeah. So when you set up all of the constraints, you'll see that the frame already moves, the things already start to move how you want them to move. So for example,
Mm-hmm.
the icon stays on the right, the
Mm-hmm.
logo stays on center.
Mm-hmm.
So what you want to do next is you want to click on the frame and you want to increase the width until the design actually starts to look bad, basically. So for example, what I did is as soon as I got to about like this is like 430 originally.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the iPhone 14 Pro Max frame.
Mm-hmm.
So when I got to 630 in this example, I saw that you could fit two of these cards right here, and there was no need for
This
this card
one.
to be behind.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So what you want to do is just like go to a point where you see where the design breaks. So for
Mm-hmm.
example, in this case, it was 630. And
Mm-hmm.
then what you want to do is make some changes in the design. So I'm just going to quickly copy paste this. Yeah. You just want to do something like this. Yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
now you can like for this is like for example. So what I did is this thing here. So this was 630, and when you have 630, let me delete this one. So when and now we have 630, so we have designed everything for 630 width. So now you want to
Mm-hmm.
click on 630 and you want to increase the width of the 630th frame. And
Mm-hmm.
for example, in this example, when I got to about 830, so about like 200 pixels, so 430, 630, and 830. When I got to about 830, I saw that you
Mm-hmm.
can make some more changes. For example, in here, the footer can go up to a 3 column grid, for example. this button was way too long. So for example, a design break. So I just shifted this button right over here, made a few design changes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and now you can see that these cards does not have a fourth card. So you can just copy paste this another one. So you can see there's a fourth card now. I
Mm-hmm.
made some more changes. For example, in the 831, I changed the search bar into two separate things. So a search bar and a filter button. Now you have the eight. So when you have the 830, you can start increasing the width of the 830, and then you can end up with something like so for example, in this case, 830 got to about 1200 before the design actually broke. And when the design broke, it was about 1200. So I set the width to 1200 and then made few design changes again. So for example, if you see it side by side here, let me disable the menu. So as you can see, the search bar is the same, but the filter button now has its own text. The navigation has its own text now. So this is a point where you'll see the navigation actually get its own text. Before this 1200 point, I want it to be like this,
Okay.
basically. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and then you make design changes as well. So the card size, I think I increased a little bit. The image size increased just a little bit, and as you can see, like the footer completely changed, because there was enough space to fit everything in one column, in one row. I mean, yeah. And then for the next step, what you want to do is when you have 1200 ready, so you're gonna increase the size of the 1200 like this, and then you end up at a certain point where you can make some design changes again. So, um, at about 1500, I want the filter button to be removed, the search bar to come to the left, and the filter, all of the filters now are on the main page, um, like this. So what I did is just going over it again. Let me copy paste this. So what I did is this is 1200, right? And to increase the size of this frame up to a certain point. So I got to about like 1500. I see that there's now enough space for me to shift everything to the right and have
Okay.
enough space for a filter here. Yeah. So like everything from the cards, everything can be shifted to a two-column grid across the whole page. So this kind of manual design, it requires you to manually I mean, this kind of complex design requires you to manually create the whole system, but I'll send you a link on that 8 pixel grid. The 8 pixel grid is basically good for a really responsive website. So like if you want to have if you have something on your website that's like this three squares like this, let me just change the color. Um actually I'll do this. So if you have something like this on your website, where is this like three or four, give me a second. Yeah, so if you have like three images here, there's a couple of text here, and yeah. So if you have something like this on your website, then it's really easy to have an 8 pixel grid, for example. But because then you can just let me frame selection this. It's not going to work now because there's no constraints, but then you can just do this and have the three images substitute into two images and then substitute into one image. So that's the benefit of having an eight pixel grid. But
Yes.
I find it easier in all of the projects that I've done. I find it easier just to have a manual design like this. So if I want to if I want to make some changes at 630, I can make changes at 630. If I want to have some changes at 1200, I can make changes at 1200. But with an 8 pixel grid, it's like you have to work with multiples of 8. So you can't have anything at like 25 or 27. You always got to have something at 24 or 32, for example. And in the last step, which is like the biggest scene surprise I have, I only increased the card size a little bit, made the text a little bit larger, and everything almost stayed the same. So if you have set up constraints really nicely, then you can set up things way quicker because for example, before I designed this, imagine I only got to 1500, right? But I've set up the constraints perfectly, and I know that the next frame is like at 1700 or 1800. I could just do let me change it back to scale mode, and I can just do this. And as you can see, like everything is almost set up perfectly. Then you just need to make a few changes, and then yeah, it's the whole page is ready. I don't need to make any changes to the footer, to this section, because the constraints already are set up. So I just need to change this thing here. And I think it's broken because they're not in the same group. But yeah. So yeah, so that is the whole thing about responsive design in the middle. So going over it again, so just start from mobile and
Mm,
set up the constraints perfectly, and then
mm,
just increase the size to the frame little by little until it breaks, and then make the
mm,
design for that point where it breaks. Then
mm.
design that frame, and then increase the size of that frame, and then so on and so on.
Okay. So it's like about like using constraint. I was like looking for some like breakpoint, bootstrap breakpoint. There's certain kinds of with instruction there, like less than screen size, less than 764, something like this. Like, what is this
Mhm.
about? Do you like encounter these kind of things here?
Yeah. So there's a thing in HTML that's called media queries,
Yeah, yeah,
and
media queries.
yeah. So basically, what it does is sets the rules for vertical and horizontal height on your frames, basically. So if you have a screen
Mm-hmm.
size that's 1920 by 1080, for example, let's
Mm-hmm.
consider that to be the maximum, then you'll have a media query at that point, where you say if any screen size bigger than 1920 or 1080, this is going to be
Mm-hmm.
the design for that frame. So it basically, in terms of code, it basically changes the HTML and the CSS at that point. So what some design teams do is they have already set up media queries for their
Mm-hmm.
project, and they just want you to design frames or designs for those sets of media queries. So, for
Mm-hmm.
example, in our case, I didn't get any media query requests. So it was like just create a mobile frame and a PC frame and the responsive design in between. So some teams do this, and some teams
Mm-hmm.
require you to make specific designs for specific widths and heights. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so, for example, if I get a client that says I want a design at 1920, 1080, I want a design for, let's just go over here, and yeah, so he could say I want a design for 1728 by 117, so a
Mm-hmm.
MacBook Pro 16 size. I want a design for the MacBook Air M2.
Yep.
I
Mm-hmm.
want a design for the iPod Pro. I want a design for the iPhone 14, and I want a design for the 11 Pro. So all of
Mm-hmm.
these are media queries basically in
Yeah,
terms
yeah,
of
yeah.
how it will be implemented. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But
So,
in terms
yeah,
of
yeah.
this project, we didn't get
Mm-hmm.
any request like this, so this is just
Uh,
manual work. Yeah.
thing is, we need to do everything in manual, right?
Yeah, because manual gives you way more control over
Hmm.
everything.
Yeah.
Um, and you're free to place objects wherever you want. You're free to like, yeah, basically, yeah.
Mm. Okay. So I'm like a little bit confused. Like, how should I like apply those things and a little bit confused sometimes. Like you cleared my doubts. So thank you for your time.
It's
So
okay, it's okay.
yeah, so in the design process, if I need any help from you, I will ask you.
Yeah, that's not a problem. Yeah, yeah, anytime, anytime.
Okay, so thank you so much. I think
Yeah,
and
I hope
yeah,
that was helpful and
yeah,
useful.
yeah, really, I learned a lot. I was like little bit confused. Like, thank you so much. I cleared it just cleared. And can you send me the link of this it's really great thing?
Yeah, I will send it to you. I'll send
Is
it to you just now.
you can send me the Telegram. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, yeah.
Okay, then thank you so
All
much.
right,
Have a good
all right,
day.
yeah. Bye, bye,
Bye.
Michelle. Thank you.
Bye.